Good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Alex Hoffman. I'm with the Equipment Dealers Association. It is my pleasure to welcome Blain Johnson today. Blain runs Job Depot USA and T3 Recruiters. They're an industry-specific recruiting firm and job board, and he specializes in ag equipment, truck and automotive, diesel fleet, heavy equipment, boats, marine, power generation, and renewable energy. So he's an expert in all things jobs and recruiting, and we're so excited to have him with us today. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. Before we encourage you to ask questions. So Blain is going to take questions at the end today, but if you have any thoughts that pop up while he's speaking, just throw them in the Q&A box. There's a little box on your screen. It says Q&A. Click that. A text box will come up. You can type in your question. Send it to us. We'll read them aloud at the end. We'll keep your information anonymous, and so Blain can answer any questions you might have. Secondly, we will be sharing a copy of this recording with everybody following the presentation, and you're welcome to share that information with others in your dealership. And lastly, just a reminder that this and other webinars are free services of EDA for our members. And if you have any questions about membership or your other benefits, just give us a call at the office. That's all I have. Thanks again for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Blain.
Well, hi, everybody. And Alex, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. As Alex mentioned, my name is Blain Johnson. I own a recruiting agency called T3 Recruiters, and I'm co-owner of a job board that we created called Job Depot USA. And my slide isn't moving. And so just a little bit of history on T3 Recruiters. We've been recruiting, as Alex mentioned, in several of the industries. Essentially, the commonality between all of the industries that we focus on are the products are all powered by a diesel engine. And so we work with the dealers and distributors that sell and support various types of equipment that are powered by a diesel engine. So as Alex mentioned, agricultural equipment, construction equipment, heavy truck, and the like. And so we've been recruiting in those industries for about 15 years. And several years ago, at the request of our customers, we launched efforts to put together a job board which was designed to create an arena for dealers and candidates to find each other without the expense of recruiting fees. And we called that Job Depot USA. And last year, early in the year, we partnered with Equipment Dealers Association. So as a brief overview today, I'm going to talk about the factors that create such a fiercely competitive hiring environment that we're in right now, how tight the job market is. We're going to look at various suggestions and or tips to attract talent acquisition, and looking at some places that maybe a typical dealer doesn't think to look or doesn't actually exploit as well as they could. Look at retention benefits and tips of retaining the key employees that you already have on board, and kind of a quick look at job boards in general, but more specifically diving into specialty job boards and the roles that they can play in your recruiting efforts. Want to give you some of the tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way, many years of online activity and focusing on what creates an effective job posting, getting your job to the right audience, and then kind of transitioning to, if those efforts aren't getting your positions filled, then partnering with a recruiter and some of the relationships that you can form with a recruiting agency. And then finally, as Alex mentioned, I'll open things up to a Q&A at the end. And one of the things that I like the most about being involved in these open forums, whether it's a webinar or a presentation, is the opportunity to exchange thoughts at the end. And I'd encourage everybody that's participating today to chime in at the end and perhaps maybe volunteer some of the things that you're doing as a group or a company that perhaps I didn't cover that are working effectively for you, so that as I continue to be invited for these things in the future, I can certainly share your insights and the things that are working well for you. So moving on, over the past couple of years, job creation has exacerbated the shortage of available talent. The year 2018, 2.6 million new jobs were created. These are jobs that didn't exist before, and so trying to find people to fill them becomes increasingly harder. And over the past year, with a creation of an additional 200,000 new jobs every month, only 65,000 new workers are entering the workforce. So obviously, that has created a deficit of 1.6 million employees in just the past 12 months. Recognizing that baby boomers are retiring, and the Generation X folks, as they're entering the workforce, there's a huge difference in available talent that is entering the workforce versus the people that are retiring and creating those new job openings. So again, just kind of briefly looking at the creation of new jobs and the decreasing number of people entering the workforce in relation to those retiring people, it has driven the unemployment rate down tremendously, which does contribute to making it a fiercely competitive hiring market. So finding candidates, it's more important now, probably more than in certainly the last decade, to make sure that you are getting your opportunities out in front of the right audience, and doing so requires that you are taking advantage of industry contacts, trading information with association members like the EDA and other trade groups. And so the efforts to recruit and hire talent is an ongoing challenge for everyone. Julie Cabrisi of Forbes magazine relates recruiting to dating and says it's a numbers game, which it truly is. If we knew it worked, we would all do it, and so it's increasingly important to consistently dedicate a diverse effort on and offline. So some of the things that most dealers are doing pretty actively is approaching kids that are in high school and considering entering trade schools. One of the things that most of the dealers are trying to convince kids that are considering their career options is that the difference in cost of a four-year degree coupled by the lack of income being generated while they're going to school creates an environment where skilled trade workers enter the workforce an average of $140,000 ahead of a college graduate. And so as that is pretty eye-opening for trying to attract young talent to consider more technical careers. But recruiting tips, attend high school job fairs and career days. I would even say so far as to start earlier than that. My 13-year-old son is in middle school, and this is the time that they start to consider what they want to be when they grow up. So it's never too early to start trying to attract that talent, and doing so, highly recommended sponsoring athletic programs or school clubs, getting your brand out there, making people aware in the community, especially these kids that are going to be job seekers and entering the workforce in just a few short years, getting your name in front of them and creating that brand awareness. Things that you can do also create some type of a annual scholarship contest in order to be able to support them through their trade school education. One of the things that I try to do, and one of the things that Job Depot USA focuses on greatly, is looking to try to get U.S. veterans back into the workforce. While this data is a little bit old, I wanted to include it because it shows the number of people that were veterans, unemployed veterans in 2015 trying to find career opportunities was extraordinary. That 495 veterans represents 0.5 or 1/2% of all people employed. And so that's a pretty incredible number. So being able to try to find and attract these veterans is a great resource. Recruiting tips: advertise in publications or job boards that are targeting retired veterans. You can enlist the help of the U.S. Department of Labor Veterans Placement Program. If you go to dol.gov, there is a whole section on being able to use their resources to be able to put you in touch with veterans that are either retiring or discharging from services and looking for ways to get active into civilian life. Nope. And then offer tuition reimbursement, moving cost assistance, or other short-term housing credits to help veterans in the resettlement process. And then obviously form alliances with veterans associations such as Veterans of Foreign War, Wounded Warrior Project, which we are both, we're partnered with both of them and proud of that fact. And so quickly breezing over talent retention, this is kind of a staggering number. 3 million Americans quit their job every month and have since June of 2017. So over the course of the last 2 years, every single month, 3 million people voluntarily change jobs. And so if you can avoid your staff becoming that statistic, the better for you. And being able to focus on retaining your current employees is probably one of the most important things you can do, because obviously keeping your turnover low reduces time and training costs. As everybody knows, bringing on a new employee is the most expensive time a company invests in new employees. And it prevents work interruptions, keeps institutional knowledge in place, and maintains a more cohesive workplace. So one of the world's leading employment research organizations, Gartner, did a study and found that there are 5 key factors in what drives people to make a job change. The things that are most important to people are stability, whether or not their company is going to be able to, to be there for them. Compensation, obviously the almighty dollar. Whether or not they feel respected. Health benefits. Smaller companies have challenges in being able to compete in that arena. I own a small business and I've elected to go with a professional employment organization, which gives me buying power for health benefits. And then whether or not their employer gives them the opportunity to provide a work-life balance. So kind of focusing on things that keep your employees happy, avoiding certain changes in the workplace, things like management changes that people don't see coming, make people uneasy. And as a recruiter, as I'm interviewing people and asking what their motivations are, these are all factors in, certainly everyone, but any of these could have been the driving factor in what has a potential employee out looking for new opportunities. Offering competitive compensation and benefits. Invariably, I have clients that ask me, "Hey, Blain, are my wages in line with what you're seeing out there?" And my answer is always, if you're losing people and you're doing exit interviews as they're leaving, and one of the factors that they're saying they had a more lucrative opportunity somewhere else, then the answer is yes. If you're not hearing that, and you're not having the opportunity to do exit interviews, then perhaps your compensation is aggressive enough to keep people happy there and employed with you. But you always want to try to make sure that you're fostering a environment of respect in the workplace, encourage that healthy work-life balance, consistently providing feedback to your employees. One of the statistics we'll get to here shortly is when new employees join organizations, they're always uneasy about whether they made the right decisions or not, and having constant reassurance that they're doing a good job and performing well and picking things up. And so trying to provide positive feedback is really valuable. Giving employees the opportunity, encouragement to grow, challenging them, and giving opportunity for personal and professional growth, and encouraging employee feedback in your decisions and the management of the direction of the company. Everybody likes to feel like they're a part of the team and a valued asset in the company. So moving on, when the statistics tell you that even if you're retaining all of your employees, that job growth and the job creation will eventually drive you to a point where you're going to have to go out and hire. And offering things like employee referral rewards, so that your own valued employees are introducing you to the people in their network that may be able to help you fill jobs. But all of the things that we do in order to be able to try and attract talent, invariably you're going to find yourself looking outside of the company and trying to bring in new fresh talent. And so job boards can do that very well. It makes virtually whatever job platform you use or job help wanted ad platform you use, makes it pretty easy for candidates to learn about your opportunity. Certainly is much more affordable than some other options like using recruiters, but most of them have a pretty easy application process, and that alerts the hiring manager when a new applicant has found your job, and that kind of lends itself to that easy access to the information, where you can log into a dashboard and see the candidates that have applied and such. The cons to job boards, the big national job boards that are not industry specific get an audience of everybody under the sun that's looking, and you get an inflow of unqualified applicants that you have to sift through, which can be extremely time consuming, and oftentimes you don't see anybody that really kind of checks the boxes of industry experience and somebody that would automatically know the nuances of the industry. And then certainly if the people aren't actively looking, they're not going to find your job online, no matter where you post the job. So the advantage of a specialty job board is that it focuses on a specific candidate database. We are focused on only the markets that are relevant to the audience of people that we recruit for or serve. So driving job traffic, if you will, to potential candidates that may or may not be looking, and really focusing on only relevant candidates, so you're not getting applicants from the Piggly Wiggly or Burger King. And looking at it's still a much lower cost typically than the bigger boards, and still has the ease of access to the candidates and information as people apply to the jobs. The cons would be for specialty boards, you don't get that larger amount of traffic. The candidates that are not actively looking are still not going to find that job. So this is probably one of the things I hope is probably the most valuable to the audience today, is efforts to put together a job ad that is most likely to find the right audience of people. And so the industry standard for job posting dictates that you use the job title specifically throughout the course of the ad, no less than 5 times in your job description. And go into that just a little bit, but other things that are specific, information like salary tends to only discourage qualified candidates from applying. If you have a range, you're obviously trying to do your company the favor of keeping applicants within that range, but a good qualified candidate that may be just above that range will see the range and be discouraged from applying. And so I always discourage my clients and certainly our recruiters, when they're posting their ads, not to use specific limiting information that would discourage people from applying. So if you were to go to JobDepotUSA.com and go to your employer sections, you would have to register in order to be able to post a job. And when you register, it's a very brief form that says, email address and create a password. You have the opportunity to put your website in, and even add your company logo and company description, and then simply registering. You have the opportunity to post the job, which we're obviously number of jobs that you intend to post and by now. And so the effective use of keywords is hypercritical in being able to get that job posting out in front of the right eyes. So blowing this up a little bit, that reiteration of the job title here again, I've highlighted in yellow. If you're posting a position for an agricultural equipment mechanic, for example, using that specific keyword string several times throughout the posting is going to enhance your likelihood of being able to have a keyword search for that return the results of your job. Other things that you want to try to include are keywords that are going to stand out from other service related positions, specific brands. Obviously, nobody wants to run advertisements for their competitors, but the truth of the matter is you want the right eyes landing on your job. And so specifically only identifying your brand experience limits anybody else that might be doing a keyword search for any of your competitors. And so things like training, things, benefits, anything that you think would be relevant to your audience, sprinkling those things through and kind of reiterating those along with your specific keywords string for the job title. And so moving on to recruiters, benefits of using a recruiter. They know a lot of people, whether they're looking actively or that they may have passively kind of keeping an ear out. But a good specialized recruiter, they know how to qualify candidates, and they have access to qualified candidates who may not actively be searching today. T3, our database, we have over 45,000 candidates that we've accumulated over the course of that 15 years that we've been recruiting. And we have a network of about another 55 or 6,000 people that are industry specific, that have, obviously other contacts and friends and colleagues that we can network with. So it's a definite advantage of using an industry specific recruiter. And most recruiters work on a contingent basis, which means you only pay a fee if they actually fill your position and solve your problem for you. The other advantage is that they are filtering through all of the unqualified candidates and narrowing down to the specific, again, nuances of the things that you are looking for your specific position. The negative is that it's not cheap. It does cost a percentage of the hire. Typically, you can find some agencies that might be able to negotiate some type of a flat fee. And T3 Recruiters, along with most recruiting agencies out there, as long as they have a true partnership with their client companies and there is transparent feedback back and forth, time is money. And so the more effective that the hiring process is designed to be, then typically the more flexible that percentage of hire cost goes down. So that's one of the keys there. So two types of relationships that most recruiting agencies offer is that contingent agreement that I just breezed over. This is, again, contingent upon hire, only going to cost you if you hire and the candidate comes to work for you and starts employment with you. A good recruiter will produce several potential candidates for your review. And again, these are going to be people that are on the mark doing the job somewhere else currently for either a competitor or a neighboring dealership. So the other type of relationship is the retained search that requires some money up front. The advantage to doing a retained search is that your search is obviously going to take a higher priority, and that when the recruiting agency finds viable candidates for you on that search, most reputable recruiters will not send that candidate out in front of other companies until you've reviewed them and decided what you're going to do with them. And so you're not competing with other potential employers when you have that retained relationship. So like to open things up. I haven't noticed, I don't see any questions here yet, but certainly more than happy to start fielding any questions that anybody has. And again, strongly encourage you to kind of chime in with anything that you are doing that I might be able to share or that we can share with the group today that kind of lends itself to effective grooming of young people and or promoting within, whatever the case may be, other outside recruiting efforts that you do on your own.
Blain, just wanted to jump in real quick and thank you. There's a lot of good information there to digest. I hope everybody kind of appreciates that and can take some nuggets back to their dealerships. A quick question that came up. What have you found in this industry is the most difficult type of position to fill?
Well, I think everybody has a hard time finding technicians, and certainly the challenge is finding people that have been trained that can step in and work on the equipment to repair it. I think if you just look at a typical dealership, you're going to have one service manager, you're going to have one sales manager, you may have a handful of people in the parts department, but as a general rule, there are going to be more technicians than any other position at a dealership. And so that inherently creates a need if that 30% is turning over, or whatever percentage of your employees are turning over. So it inherently dictates that you're going to have more needs at a technical level. So recruiting technicians is a great challenge. I would say, probably 35 or 40% of our business on the recruiting side is focused specifically at the technical level, and anything within the service department is a challenge to be able to find people that can drive service, that can manage technical efficiencies and make sure that the technicians are performing, at optimum levels. So I would say our greatest, requests numerically are technicians and service managers.
Okay. Before I continue on, I just want to remind everybody, if you do want to chime in with a question or a best practice that works for you, you can just type it in that Q&A box on your screen. So next question is, sorry, I'm rephrasing this a little bit. What are ways to overcome the challenges that come with recruiting in rural areas?
So I think, recruiting in rural areas almost dictates a willingness to relocate people. You have a limited number of people in any given market that can step in and do a job. And so when you're specifically talking about the need for a person that can step in and do the job, and you don't have time to train them, you can train anybody to be, a salesperson or a parts manager, but it takes time, and the loss of profit while you're training them probably outweighs the cost of bringing somebody from outside of the market in that knows, parts, or knows how to sell equipment, or knows the service department. And so I think, clearly there has to be a reason other than the job that a candidate would want to be in a rural area, having come from another rural area and understanding life in that, kind of environment. But the challenge of going out and finding somebody that can do the job today, if you have 4 competitors in town, or let's be crazy and say 10 competitors in town, and none of the other competitors are sending their people to you, you're advertising and you're doing whatever you can to fill the job locally, that's as many people in town that know the job. And so you almost have to go outside of the market and kind of recruit people to those areas. And as everybody in ag knows, it is tough to relocate people because you have the family ties to farms, and people are a lot less transient than more metropolitan areas. So it's just a matter of being able to talk to enough people and broadcast the opportunity to enough people that somebody goes, oh, I've got family pretty close to there, or that you find the reason that it makes sense that a potential candidate could fit into that that town.
Very good, thank you. That's all the questions we have for now. I just want to remind everybody that we will be sharing the slides and the recording from this webinar probably tomorrow. Look for that. I think Blain's contact information is in these slides, and if not, I'll be sure to share it so you can follow up with him if you have any questions. You can always follow up with me with any more generic questions or feedback. And Blain, if you don't have anything else, we'll shut it down. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you today.
All right.
Thanks again, Alex.
Thanks, Blain.
Bye-bye.